Hey everybody, welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses, the F Your Bracket edition. We have a lot to talk about, obviously, and when you have a lot to talk about, you bring out all the big guns, and I need to turn off my sound. There we go. Kevin Lacey will be joining us shortly, so we'll have the full panel tonight. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Drew Weber.
Woo! Let's go Hurricanes!
We actually did this show as a mercy for you. We schedule it now because I thought you probably...
Because we're losing 4-0 at the moment?
Right, and I thought we'd spare you the third period.
Well, thank you for that. It's good to be back.
All right. Mr. Hockey Jerk.
You hear this? You hear this? All of you drink soda company moguls out there, that could be your drink that I'm putting away. DM me at hockey_jerk on Twitter. How we doing, gang?
I'm doing terrible. I don't know anything about hockey anymore. I don't know anything. I know nothing. My bracket is a giant offer so far, and it's looking like it's going to continue in that direction with the way the playoff series are going. I might go over in the first round of the playoffs for the first time in maybe my life. Ooh. And I just feel like that's unacceptable.
You hate to see it.
Yeah. Like I just, I'm trying to like do the show. I'm watching less hockey, I'm trying to do the show, and I'm trying to like keep positive that I can do this. And then this bracket happens and I'm like, oh man, maybe it is time to pack it in and retire and, go to Florida and sit on a beach and I don't know, watch baseball. No, fuck that. All right. Let's get started here. I know Kevin's going to join us at some point. We have some series that are already in the books, obviously. Columbus. Let's start with Columbus Tampa Bay, because I think that was a big shocker for me, maybe not for other people. Obviously, Columbus swept the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I don't even know what hockey is anymore. Tampa Bay, this was a team that I was honestly like, I normally don't pick President's Trophy winners to take the cup because they generally don't, but I felt that good about this team. Like, I'm like, nope, forget the President's Trophy. It's all good. It's all good. This team's too good to screw this up. And they lose 4 games in a row. Kucherov gets suspended for a game. I mean, anything that could go wrong for Tampa really did go wrong. And it's so funny because like we're only heading into game 6 for Sharks Vegas, and already this series feels like it was a month ago, and we're still in the first round, which is to me crazy.
It's weird too, especially like you have so many series that wrap up super quick. It makes the ones that are still going on seem like they're going on forever. But not only that, I feel like we usually see you'll start to see in the second round and the third round, you'll start to see like extra days off being sprinkled between games. And I can't recall the last time that we saw, an extra day off in the first round, and let alone for 2 different series. I mean, the Sharks Vegas series has had an extra day off, and the Capitals Hurricanes series has also had an extra day off. And so, yeah, you're right, Ian. It feels like Tampa Bay got swept out 1,000 years ago. It's
last season.
Yeah, right. I mean, but I can't say that I picked Columbus to win the series, because obviously I didn't. I picked Tampa Bay like everybody else did. But I think I was one of the minority who said, don't sleep on Columbus because they're not just going to roll over and die. They're probably going to win 2 games, and it just so happened that they won 4. I
had the sweep right.
That's all you can ask for. I think because of the fact that they scratched and clawed to make the playoffs, and because of how good Tampa Bay is, I think a lot of people they forgot how good Columbus actually was. I mean, their top 6 is easily one of the best top 6 in the league, if you ask me.
Yeah, you know what, and Bobrovsky proving that you can have a crappy season and still make your money in the playoffs, because he's, after that season, with the way things are going, if Columbus keeps going the way they are, everyone's going to forget that he had just a not great regular season, and he's going to get massive bank based on his playoff performance. So I guess the 82 games, they just don't matter. Don't matter for anyone. Don't matter for Tampa. Don't matter for Bobrovsky. Just cancel the regular season.
Regular season doesn't matter.
Yeah, apparently not.
I thought this was.
Go
I
ahead.
thought this was an absolute like shocker. Like I know there's the whole President's Trophy cursing and stuff like that, and I know like the last team to have this many points was the '96 Red Wings, and they didn't make it to the Cup final. But the thing is that they at least made it to the Western Conference Finals, and they lost against the Colorado team that eventually won the Cup. But now here you have one of the best teams in NHL history losing to a team that barely made the playoffs. They made it last day of the season. And that's what kind of surprised me was that one barely made it after making all those moves. And then two, be able to find their groove in the playoffs to beat a historically like a team that was like legendary in NHL history.
Well, I think, and that's the thing, right? Like, I think there's a lot to be said for the way that you go into the playoffs. I mean, Tampa Bay, I think we can all agree, they locked up their playoff position in like December. Okay, maybe not December, but it felt like it. And you look down the stretch, and I think this is something that, got pointed out to me on Twitter was maybe it's not such a stretch when you look down how they played down the stretch and how many they were winning games, but the amount of goals they were allowing in those games probably should have been concerning. And if you look at just your plain Jane goalie stats, I mean, Vasilevsky so far was the worst goalie in the playoffs, which I didn't think was possible, knowing that we have a goalie called Martin Jones, which we're going to get to.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and we hear the cliche every year where all you have to do is just make it, and it's a second season, and I'm not really a fan of cliches, but at the same time, I think this cliche, or in this instance rather, it could not be more true because Tampa Bay was just rolling everybody, and then you come to the playoffs and they looked like just a team who was constantly getting run around and couldn't do anything. And if they play that way in the regular season, they probably don't even make the playoffs. And so Vasilevsky obviously nominated for the Vezina Trophy, and rightfully so, but to your point, Ian, he was letting in pretty much everything that was thrown at him, and it's one of those things that you can't really explain without any you can't explain it with logic from this planet. You have to go out of the solar system to explain it.
Yeah, I think Vasilevsky's kind of been dogged as this reputation of he can't win the big game. There was times where, when Ben Bishop was still in Tampa Bay, where he would have to go in because Ben Bishop would get hurt because water, wet, taxes, death,
grass green,
Ben Bishop hurt. And Vasilevsky would have to go in and he'd do okay. But, it was like when they needed that save, they couldn't get it. And now, after this series, man, I'm wondering what because I think a lot of fans like narratives, but I wonder what the feeling is among actual Tampa fans about Vasilevsky at this point.
Yeah, he let in the numbers here. He let in 15 goals on 104 shots, which is an .856 save percentage. And I know it's only 4 games, but when you're playing behind a team as good as Tampa, you can't let in that many.
Right, and I think that's the problem, right? You look at this team, and it's such a huge lost opportunity for this team, especially when you look around. I mean, we're obviously going to talk about the other playoff series, but I mean, you look around at some of these teams that have already been out, and I mean, it's and maybe again, this playoff season so far, everything's been the opposite of what you think it should be. So maybe you shouldn't get too excited for some of these teams, but look at some of these teams that are still alive, and I'm like, damn, they got a pretty clear path now.
Oh, for sure.
Well, the only problem that I have with what you were saying about Vasilevsky is, yes, obviously you need your goalie to make a save, and a sub sub a 900 save percentage is not going to get the job done. But let's also say here, in the playoffs, granted, like you said, Drew, small sample size, but in 4 games they only averaged 2 goals a game.
Right.
Versus in the regular season, they were averaging almost 4 goals per game. So essentially half of your offense is just gone. And
that's what you expect in the playoffs, though, don't you? I mean, generally offense goes down in the playoffs.
Yes, but
I think it's really. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, like, a team as good as Tampa Bay, though, like with how much talent they have on that roster, and obviously you don't anticipate Kucherov getting suspended or Stamkos being hurt, but still, like with how just like their 4-line attack was the best 4-line attack in the league, just for all 4 of their lines to just fizzle out at the same time, it's unheard of. And conversely, on the other side of that, I mean, Columbus was averaging. I'm going to do some quick math here. In the regular season, Columbus averaged, just over 3 goals a game, versus in the playoffs, they had 4 in game 1, 5 in game 2, 3 in game 3, and 7 in game 4. I mean, their goal scoring just shot up.
Yeah.
So it's just, like I said, it's just one of the things that's like, you can't really quantify that. It's just, I don't understand it. I mean, I guess that's the lore of playoff hockey, is anything can happen, but it's just one of those things where I really don't know how to explain it.
Just want to take a second to say hello to everyone in the chat. I see you. I try not to I try not to talk in the chat during the past, because I'm a very heavy typer. So I try to minimize those kind of noises for the audio and everything else. So I see you. I'm here. I will try to address you on camera and not in the chat itself, unless I can find an opportunity to mute myself while I type. All right, so I don't know. I mean, I look at Tampa Bay. I mean, that series is pretty crazy. I think the one thing that I definitely enjoyed after it, though, is because, like, when I was saying about narratives and how sometimes like a narrative gets established and then like it's it just becomes like a talking point all the time, regardless of whether it actually applies or not. And after Tampa got swept, and I don't remember who it was, and probably for the best, somebody said like, oh, blah blah blah, this and this, and they also got screwed by the unfortunate playoff system. And I'm thinking, like, wait, what? Tampa did not get screwed by the playoff system. Tampa would play Colorado, or would have played Columbus, whether it was 1 versus 8. Like, there's no system other than 1 through 16, which the NHL is never going to adapt, where Tampa is going to get a different matchup, like working as intended. Calgary Flames, same thing. Playoff systems working as intended, it wouldn't have been no different. Had you played like any other system, you would have played the same team, unless you go to a 1 to 16, and that would never happen.
Exactly.
Just,
in fact,
the NHL's never going to embrace that.
Every matchup in the West would have been exactly the same, regardless of the current format or the 1 through 8 format. And I think 2 in the East were also the same. So out of the 8 opening matchups, only 2 of them would have been different had we gone 1 through 8 instead of the wild card.
Well, 1 through 8. The problem is 1 through 8 is that everyone seems to forget that division winners always got the top seed. So it would have been a little bit different. Nashville would have played Vegas. San Jose, I don't say when I say we, but San Jose would have played Dallas, and everything else would have been the same had the top seed. But you're right, in a true 1 through 8, there was absolutely no change in the West. The East, there's some gripes there for sure. But the reason why, and I kind of went through these playoff things and put together some brackets just based on like different formats. And if there was a 1 through 16, the Sharks would have played Carolina. And this is why. This is why.
Come on, give it to me.
This is why the NHL will never adapt a 1 through 16 system, because there's no way all the East teams are going to sign off on riding their bicycle from New York to New Jersey to going and playing the Sharks in the first round. None of the Eastern teams are going to be down for that.
Oh, imagine that! Imagine a San Jose Carolina series went 7 games. Good Lord!
Oh my God!
Like the longest. I'll just say this: the longest flight I've ever been on is like just over 3 hours, and I hated it. I can't imagine, almost 6 hours, just depending on how things are going.
Bro, 12 hours. Get on my level.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
All right, Drew, world traveler, we get
it. But just for kicks, in the 1 through 16 system, and this is why, like, the Eastern teams are never going to give up their close little road trips in the early rounds. It's just never going to happen, which is why 1 through 8 is the best we can hope for. Tampa would have played Vegas. Calgary would have played Dallas. Boston would have played Montreal. Now, Montreal would have made the playoffs in this system, and Colorado would not have. So I think, so fans in Canada are now screaming for a 1 through 16 playoff format. Although Boston, Montreal have been fun. Washington, Columbus, Islanders, St. Louis, San Jose, Carolina, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Nashville, Pittsburgh. Some interesting. I mean, there would be some interesting matchups there for sure. I just can't see the NHL ever going there.
Oh gosh, no.
And joining us now, making an entrance, fashionably late as always, is Mr. Kevin Lacey.
No witty intro, Kevin?
Fashionably late, and his microphone's not plugged in.
Oh, the
Oh.
worst.
I was trying to get set up. I wasn't
Oh.
set up yet. Now I'm set up. Hi,
These
everybody.
So Kevin, real quick before we get started, I see
Yes,
the two.
these are the 2 winning jerseys of the night behind me.
I was just gonna say you've got 2 very obscure sweaters behind you. I want to know what kind of message you're sending.
I am saying that
Capital sweater out of there.
I am available to root for your favorite team for a price.
Nice. I like this. Kevin,
I totally expected to have a Carolina jersey and a Blues jersey behind me. So instead we have Drew. Hi, Drew. And he mutes himself when I say hi, Drew. Wow.
He's shook.
Sorry,
technical difficulty.
We're gonna move on from the Tampa Lumbus series. Any thoughts on that series before we move on to the next one?
I mean, just really quick. I mean, even though this is now, 4 year or 3 of the last 4 years, Tampa Bay has been, the king of second place. I still don't tear it down. I mean, this roster is still way too good, and obviously they have a major cap crunch coming, and they're going to have to, move some guys around, obviously. But I mean, I still think you got to stay the course with this roster, especially because of how young a lot of it is, and how a lot of the big players like Vasilevsky, is still on a very inexpensive contract. I mean, with the guys you have signed, Kucherov, Stamkos, Ryan McDonough, you can't afford to burn it down. You have to stay the course. And I think the Lightning are still good enough where you can stay the course. Maybe a couple minor tweaks, but I don't think this is a slash and burn situation here.
I just don't know what you
think. Kevin
do
has no
with-
face.
I just
Kevin
don't know-
suddenly has no face.
Wait, what?
What do you do if you're Tampa, though? Like, how do you make this team any better than it already is?
It's a good question. No, it's funny. I just asked Kevin about what he thought about the series, and then Dirk went off, and I was just giving Dirk a hard time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally
That's totally fine.
I didn't hear that at all anyway.
Oh, that's okay. All right. No, I just said before we moved on, Kevin, because I do kind of want to circle back to this a little bit once we talk about the Islanders Pittsburgh series, because there is a point where I do want to circle back to what Dirk talked about. But Kevin, just any thoughts on the Lumbus Lightning series?
Yeah. What the beep? That's my thought. I mean, remember what I said in the season preview? Oh, Drew logged off. I really should log off too and try and resolve an issue here. Real quick. The preview show that you and I did for Teal Tinted Glasses at lunch. You picked a sweep, if I'm not mistaken. And I said, I rarely pick sweeps, and I just can't go with one in this instance. So, of course, Tampa in 5. I mean, so, yeah. Wow. Just wow. Unbelievable.
Laurel has it right. It's global warming.
Obviously.
I tweeted, now see, I can't hear Drew now. I tweeted last night saying, at this point, I think we should just all put our money on NHL Seattle to win the Stanley Cup this year, because, I mean, who else?
Makes sense.
I mean, with how much weird things have happened this year in the playoffs, I would not be surprised if Seattle, as a team that does not exist, I would not be surprised to see them win the Stanley Cup. And of course, if you ask Gen X, he will tell you that Seattle already has won a Stanley Cup. So
that's true.
That is very true. First American team to win the Stanley Cup.
Yes, sir. And I don't know. I mean, they could be in a long line of American teams to keep winning the Stanley Cup, because Canada's teams are once again falling short.
Okay, we're going to talk about this later. I don't want to talk about this right now. Okay, so let's talk about the Islanders sweeping the Penguins, because here's another series. I thought this series would go a little bit longer than it did. I don't think I predicted anything near a sweep here, but I thought Pittsburgh, like, again, Pittsburgh, you look at this team and you say, all right, this team should still be good. And they were not this series. Crosby was held to nothing. And I didn't really pay attention if there was like any injuries involved here or anything. I haven't dug that deep on this series. I like it. I mean, like, it's funny because if I should have made the bracket that I wanted instead of the bracket that I thought, and I would be looking like a genius right now.
Well, if I'd done the bracket that I wanted, Tampa Bay would have won the cup.
Well, yeah, I think I would have still had Tampa probably going through like the entire bracket, so it'd still be broken, but it wouldn't be as broken as it is right now.
I'm just glad that the NHL has decided to allow a second chance bracket. I think that's a good move on their part, because I think I'd be curious to know how many people's brackets were busted, like what percentage. I mean, it's got to be like obviously 80% if they're willing to do a second chance.
I mean, mine, like I said, so far I'm 0-4 in the first round. Like, I haven't picked a first round series right yet, and the only one that I may still get right is the one I really don't want to be right about.
Yeah, I said Tampa Bay, Columbus won. I said Calgary, Colorado won.
Yeah.
I said St. Louis and they won, which is good. I said the Islanders and they won, but yeah, still not a good look considering my Stanley Cup runner-up is already grayed out.
Yeah.
I think everyone's is, at least. Everyone's runner-up or winner is already out.
Except mine.
Word.
Because
my runner-up is still alive.
I have Nashville, and Nashville's still alive. That's about all I got.
We'll find out in the next like 3 days.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't hold your breath, Kevin.
Yeah.
So, Jerk, you went on about how like Tampa probably. I mean, look at Tampa's got to make some choices. I mean, they've got half their decors UFA this summer, more than half their decor. Obviously, I think you didn't. I agree with the sentiment that they didn't win. The President's Trophy and set this, have this record. Maybe not record. It wasn't record breaking. It tied the record. You didn't have that season on accident, so you probably don't want to. You don't want to burn it to the ground. But Pittsburgh, on the other hand, I mean, like, what do the Penguins do? I think they're going to be one of the more fascinating teams to watch this summer, because I think you look at this group and this group won. Well, I mean, obviously it's been dismantled, but the core of this group just won 2 Stanley Cups not too long ago. But is it time to burn it down a little bit? I
don't think you burn it down. I think you have to do a controlled burn, because and now my general manager experience obviously extends to the NHL video game and some online fantasy leagues. So I'm kind of an expert. No, I'm just kidding. But I would love to get the keys to this franchise and just shape it how I see fit. Because I mean, I still think this is a situation. I mean, I don't think it's as easy to correct as say Tampa Bay. But I still think if you like I said, you burn a little bit around the edges, you do a controlled burn. I still think you can. I still think you can get this thing up and running. I mean, obviously, Crosby, Malkin are still studs, right?
And untouchable.
And untouchable, yes. And you've got some gems on this team, and I think if you just do some finagling, I still think you can make something happen here. But at the same time, last year, I mean, the Penguins made their money on beating Washington in the playoffs, and they didn't do that last year. And then this year, they were probably the worst team in terms of like play in the first round. They were probably the worst team in the playoffs. Like there was zero stretch of that series where I thought, Penguins were going to have this one. The Islanders just kept, every time the Penguins would throw a right, the Islanders would counter with a left, and the Penguins had no answer for it. And like I said, I think this is still fixable, but you got to trim a lot of fat on this roster.
And I wonder what the Penguins, like, did they trim fat in the wrong places leading up to this series? Because if you look at some of the players that they moved on from, did they move on from the wrong? I don't want to say role players, but role players. Like, did they move on from the wrong role players?
I think so. I mean, a guy like Tanner Pearson, I mean, he wasn't exactly, he wasn't lighting up the score sheet, but he's still a good depth forward to have. And instead you ship him out and you bring in Eric Goodbranson, who, I mean, he's a serviceable defenseman, don't get me wrong. And he's a defenseman in general, which you need in the playoffs. But again, that's a big ticket for the next 2 years after this year. And you're already a cap team as it is. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins have, the Pittsburgh Penguins have 6 defensemen who are making more than $3 million right now. And none of them are unrestricted free agents coming up. You also have Jake Gensel's extension, which is going from $734,000 to $6 million kicking in. And there's a lot of money tied up in this roster. And, Rutherford is that's the GM, right? Rutherford. Yeah.
Yes.
He's going to have to get real creative real quick.
That's all right. All right. So, Drew, you're back on. You have any thoughts on this Penguins Islanders thing, and maybe dovetail that into some thoughts about how Tampa should be similar this summer or different? I think most of us are leading that they should definitely approach the summer differently.
So, I think Pittsburgh is. I don't think Pittsburgh will be that because. And sorry, I've been on and off trying to work with some technical difficulties, so I don't know if Jerk already mentioned this, but I don't know what they can move that's viable enough to get valuable assets back. They can, if you want to deal your first round picks, but you don't have a second or third this year. Like their blue line needs help, but they only have 4 forwards that are more than 40 goals. So if you want help on the blue, or 40 points, sorry. If they want help on the blue line, they're going to have to deal one of those people. And then basically what you're trading your strength to help your weakness. But in doing so, you're making your strength your weakness. It's not like the
Chiarelli plan.
It's not like the Johansson Jones deal where Nashville traded from a plethora of defensemen to get a top line center that he needed, and he was ends. Pittsburgh will be trading a forward to get a defenseman that they need, and you're just moving your problem someplace else. You're doing the Patrick Starr strategy there, or the Peter Chiarelli strategy.
I mean, I look at guys like Phil Kessel, and I look at guys like Chris Letang as guys that you probably are going to have to use to bring in assets. I mean, we saw this with the Chicago Blackhawks, where you're trading away really good pieces. You're trading away really good pieces to maybe get 2 or 3 good pieces, and hopefully you're going to craft those into, assets that can help you out down the road. But those are the 2 I'm looking at. I mean, just big money, and they're still good players. They're serviceable to any hypothetical acquiring team, but you got to test the market on those guys. And if you're doing that, you're tearing apart a really big part of your team at the same time.
Kevin, any thoughts on this series here with the Penguins and the Islanders and what they should do this summer?
The Penguins and the Islanders should do this summer?
Yeah, or no, the Penguins and the Lightning, sorry. But the Penguins Islanders series, obviously, and then
Okay. The Lightning, I think, just need to hold sit tight to where they're at. I think that they've got such a strong core and whatnot, and they've got a lot of youth, and they're just churning out players. I mean,
yeah,
I think they will be fine. The issue for me with the Lightning is Steve Yzerman had such a knack of finding ways to keep the group together despite the salary cap.
Right.
And now it's up to Julien Brisebois to prove that he can do the same. As far as the Penguins go, they might be kind of in the realm of the Sharks in that their guys are starting to get a little bit older. Crosby and Malkin are still going to be dynamite players for all eternity, but they are just the overall nucleus is starting to get a little bit older. So it's kind of the same questions that you hear about the Sharks about how will they be able to manage with the nucleus, and is it time to change? I think the answer is no for Pittsburgh. because they've got solid coaching, they've got solid pillars, Letang, Crosby, Malkin, etc., Murray. But I don't know about Pittsburgh. I think there are some more question marks, especially Phil Kessel. Every year we always hear, can he continue to do it, because his conditioning's not that great. And he's starting to become a little more inconsistent now. So that, I think, would be the question mark.
Or Matt Murray and Martin Jones, the Leighton and Niemi for 2019. Like, guys that went to the finals and did okay and then just completely fell off the map.
Probably. I mean, I was always a fan of Matt Murray. I thought I really liked his athleticism and I really liked his vision. But especially this season, he's had some brutal outings, and especially like his up high game. I mean, it's tough, especially, you get guys coming down the ice from, the face-off dot and they're throwing it on net and it's going in. So, I mean, you think with a guy like Matt Murray, I mean, he's so young. He's 24 years old. You think
he's a baby.
You think there's still time to turn that around. I mean, not every 20-year-old wins a Stanley Cup, obviously.
No.
But yes, he's definitely had a lot of holes poked in him recently, in the last year and a half, I would say. And if he is on the same path as Martin Jones, I mean, it is what it is. But I still think with Matt Murray, I still think he has time to right the ship.
Well, I think this happens, right? Like, a goalie comes into the league, especially like rookie goalies, right? The book finally comes out, and then the goalie either makes adjustment or he goes into oblivion. Where, like, I feel like Matt Murray's got time, whereas Martin Jones is like kind of getting into this, and we're gonna get to the Sharks here, I promise, because I know that's why everyone's here. But like, when I look at Martin Jones, I say, okay, he's, the book is now out, but has he made the adjustments? And I don't know that they're there. Foreshadowing. Let's get this Colorado-Calgary series out really quick, and then we can move on to the Sharks, because obviously that's what everyone's here for. And we got to get there, even though I had a completely different plan before game 5.
Hey,
I
did say the Colorado-Calgary series would be the most fun series of the round. Who would have thought, though? I picked Calgary in 7, but wow.
What's funny, because when I did the solo show a little while back, I said that would be like that series was like, had some serious upset value there. And then when I did my bracket, I went against my gut and I went Calgary, because I'm an idiot. I'm really bitter about that right now.
You Canadian nationalist.
I that series was a lot of fun to watch. For me, and again, hashtag Team Chaos, hashtag Team Jerk, it was a lot of fun for me to watch Johnny Gaudreau get rattled in this series. Like, it seems like every game he's getting slashed on the hand and he's getting bumped around and he's missing the net and he's getting pissed off about it. And I mean, of course, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's just watching him get rattled. It's kind of just one of those things where it's like, good, because, Johnny Gaudreau has gotten, he's gotten away with kind of being a whiner a little bit the last few years. And so it's nice, at least in my opinion. And so it's nice to see him, kind of get his comeuppance in a true heel fashion.
And it's nice for the media to finally call it out too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, forever we've just been hearing all the praises of Johnny Hockey, and it was nice the last couple of games to hear he needs to suck it up and be an NHL player. And it's like, wow, when have we ever heard? People have been saying that, but when have we actually heard a media member, let alone several of them, say it?
Yeah, no, I completely. It's a good point. It's an amazing point, actually. And I wonder if that would happen if Johnny Gaudreau's Canadian.
Who knows?
No, I still wonder. But overall, I think I'm 100% on board with that, because I do agree that Johnny Gaudreau stuck it out. Honestly, I thought if Calgary fell apart, it was going to be Mike Smith that was going to be the cause of them falling apart, and Mike Smith was probably Calgary's best player.
So let me ask you this really quick.
All right.
if the Hart Trophy is done based on performance in the playoffs, is Nathan McKinnon your winner?
Well, that's the Conn Smythe, sir.
Yeah, but the Conn Smythe, the definition of Conn Smythe is MVP of the playoffs, but
Right.
it's only seems to be allowed for, people who play in the Cup final. I would like
That's fair.
I would like to see somebody who's been eliminated win the Conn Smythe. That's all I'm saying. And not J.S. Jaguar in 03. I mean, like, lost in the third round, but they had like 20 goals.
The most valuable player of these playoffs is neither of you idiots. Get out of here.
Team chaos.
Can you imagine that though? Like, dude walks out in his suit, or even better, like shorts and like sandals. Oh hey, golf bag over his back.
He's like got the sunglasses tan on his face.
Comes out to get the Conn Smythe. Oh god, that's too much. Yeah, Nathan McKinnon's fantastic. I've always been a huge Nathan McKinnon guy. I like this team. I think like this team, like I like that this team is doing well. I think that that there's been maybe some people have probably accused the Colorado Avalanche of having a little too much patience, and it's nice to see them finally kind of get rewarded for sticking with some of their guys that they could not win with.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts on the series before we move on to the
it's still a shame the Sharks couldn't play Calgary in the first round, because I felt like the whole second half of the season all I was saying was I think the Sharks can easily take Calgary. I never bought into them, even though, again, like what you said, Ian, about how my gut said don't pick Calgary to win any rounds at all.
Right.
But I did anyway. But I have not believed in this team. I felt like it's all smoke and mirrors. I think it's been a great run for Calgary this season, but kind of like Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay equate to the 09 Sharks, where they were on cruise control for so long they couldn't figure out how to get out of it. I do think that Calgary was a victim of their own success and probably let it get into their heads like, oh, hey, we didn't think we were this good, but if everybody else says we're this good, we must be. And then Colorado came in and said, get out of my barn. So.
Yeah. Like just some stuff from the chat here really quick. James asking, are all these upsets really good for the NHL? Does anyone want to see a Carolina Colorado final? If it's good hockey, I'll watch it. I mean, both of those teams, like, neither of these teams are boring. Sure, maybe they don't have like the biggest markets, so they're not the most popular teams in the league, but they both play fun hockey, so I don't see why I would be opposed to that. I mean, I think when obviously it's like it may not be the sexy matchup for television or whatever, and I get that. Like, that's a completely different animal, but I mean, as long as the hockey's good, I don't care. You're right. NBC doesn't even know what they're going to do in the second round. I think they might just cancel the second round because they don't know anything about any of the teams that are currently in the process of making it through. Like, if Boston goes out, what do they know? Nothing.
It's been the Jesus. It's been the spring of the upset, It
has been.
Like so far the series that have won, the teams that have won and moved on have been the underdogs. I mean, that said, I did pick two of the series correctly, but that doesn't mean that I know what I'm talking about. It means I got lucky. And
right.
Yeah, these playoffs have definitely been fun from like I said, from a team chaos perspective.
Absolutely.
It's nice. I said it, when Ian and I jumped on randomly, whenever that was, a week ago or a few days ago, where I said, it's nice to see some teams, teams that haven't been in the Final Four lately, making noise and showing potential of getting to that point. I mean, all of the sudden, could we see the Islanders just roll through everybody? I mean, maybe. With how well Robin Leonard's been playing.
Yeah, I think that, like, as long as the hockey is good, I don't really care. I think any any hockey fan just wants to see good hockey. If you're a fan that watches the playoffs beyond your team being in or out, I think the best you can just hope for is good hockey at this point. It's always nice to watch, maybe David slay Goliath or whatever. But at the same time, I mean, if it's something simple like, I don't think it's going to be Carolina per se, but if like it's Colorado and the Islanders, I mean, that series would be hella fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about the Sharks because
really quickly. If Dallas and Nashville Game 6 is coming up, I want to say it's on Monday. If you get the chance, watch that game, and specifically for number 24 in Dallas, Rope Hintz, watch him because he's somebody that I've heard about throughout the year, and I've heard he's a good little player. But actually getting to watch him, he is so much fun to watch. So
he was really good for the Texas Stars in the Calder Cup Finals last year too.
Yeah, really fun player to watch. So keep an eye on him. 24 for Dallas.
Okay. There's good hockey, and then there's the Sharks winning cup. Yes, obviously we want the Sharks to win the cup. Okay. So I'm not gonna lie. When I saw the show scheduled and I saw like things, I was pretty much expecting we were gonna roll the corpse in, all the body parts would be everywhere, and we'd kind of just like poke through the organs and try and figure out what went wrong. But obviously the Sharks came back in Game 5. They had a hell of a game. They staved off elimination, and now they're heading back to Vegas for Game 6. I'm shocked we're here, honestly. I didn't think that. I thought they were completely done. I'm not sold after one. Again, it's kind of like after Game 1, I'm kind of like, all right, well, this was good, but is this gonna, can they sustain it? And I'm not there. But I don't know. Where are you guys at on the team? Are you still planning the funeral, or are you so impressed by their last game with Vlasic coming back, obviously being a big factor, that the Sharks could actually pull this out? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Drew Weber.
All right. I think it gave me hope because I think everybody, we were kind of expecting the Sharks to lose Game 5. There was nothing promising in Games 3 and Game 4. They come back, have a solid Game 5. Reminds me a lot of what they did in Game 1. That was absolutely dominant. I think we're all going to know how we feel about this team after the first 5 minutes. And if the score is 1-0 Vegas, I'm going to be pretty upset and be like, this team is so trash. And then if they come back and win this series, I'd be like, I knew they could do it. I never doubted them. So it's all gonna rely on those first 5 minutes. And I really think that if the Sharks score the first goal of the game, regardless of when it is, that they're coming back to San Jose for Game 7. I think whoever scores the first goal in either of these two games is going to win that game.
Mr. Hockey Jerk.
Yeah, I agree with Drew, which I can't really say that that's ever happened.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding. No, Drew's right though. I mean, the series has been when it's been tied in terms of the score, it's been a very stingy series, and both teams have had their chances and their rushes, and it's been back and forth, and obviously Vegas has taken advantage of the Sharks more than the Sharks have taken advantage of them. But I do think if the Sharks can get out to an early lead tomorrow in Game 6, I think they will be able to just parlay that momentum through the rest of the game and hopefully through Game 7. I mean, I called this series to go 7 games, and so in that respect, I'm not surprised that we're here. But considering how dead the Sharks looked in Games 2, 3, and 4, it is kind of a shock. But I still think, like you said, Drew, I mean, they played well in Game 1, and they took that to Game 5 and played well there. I mean, they just got to keep it going, keep Vlasic doing what he's doing, and I think too, Game 5 could be big, obviously, for Martin Jones. I mean, it was a big confidence booster for him. And I've said it many times before, if you're feeling good, you're going to play good. And, being the number 3 star and making the saves, especially on William Karlsson towards the end of the game, his confidence is probably overflowing right now. And like I said, you hope that he can just steal Game 6. I mean, that's the hope.
Right. Because actually, Kevin, go ahead, and then we can all throw in our tidbits.
Well, I'm in agreement with both Drew and Hockey Jerk. I think that the Sharks, I think it's more if they can survive the first period. Even if Vegas scores the first goal, I feel like as long as the Sharks finish that first period at least tied, they're in this game. And if they score the first goal, then even better. But I said it on Teal Town USA a couple nights ago that maybe this is what the Sharks needed. Maybe the Sharks, it's a terrible game plan to go down 3-1 in a series, but maybe that's what the Sharks needed. I feel like if the Sharks had tied up the series in game 4, we've seen it time and time again where they've had that letdown in game 5 and then a nice effort but not good enough in game 6, and they lose in 6 games. So to lose game 4, yeah, that sucked, and going down 3-1, but maybe considering all the questions around the psyche of the team and whatnot, what better way to overcome that by winning 3 games in a row and taking the series against a team that has killed you for 2 years?
And as I tweeted out, I think yesterday, the Sharks have won 3 games in a row in a series 10 times in their history. Now's the great time to make it the 11th.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't, like, I'm so off the Jones train, and that's my problem, right? Like, I mean, obviously, I want them. I think you're right. I think if they can come back and win next game, I mean, it's game 7, it's jump ball. Anything can happen in a game 7. My confidence in Martin Jones is just so shattered at this point. Like, I don't know. Like, for me, I can't get over it. Like, I want them to do well, obviously, and I think if Martin Jones has a good game, I just can't expect Martin Jones to have a good game. And I think, there was a lot of talk about, who should have started game 5 and Jones started. And I was totally fine with that decision. I think in playoff hockey, you dance with the girl you brought unless the other girl has done things that is, amazing that the girl you brought isn't doing. And that's a really screwed up way of saying that Aaron Dell hasn't done anything spectacular in relief to say that he should be the starter at any point this season or this series.
And the other thing is that the Sharks have been, throughout this series, continually bringing up and sending down Antoine Bibeau. And a lot of that is practice related. In fact, all of it is practice related to have that extra goalie in there. But I just find it interesting that if they feel they need Bibeau up for the practices and whatnot this early, is something going on with Jones and Dell. I'm not saying injuries, because we have no reason to suspect either goalie is injured, but I find it interesting that the Sharks feel the need to not have Jones taking full practices, or not even having Dell take full practices. The fact that Bibeau is there, that's kind of weird to me, but it's nothing more than it's weird.
I think when you're the Barracuda too, you can afford it though, because Cornash has played great so far.
And if it has to go down to Andrew Shortridge, then obviously things are going wrong in the first place. So rely on Cornash for the
pretty much. Like I just feel like Cornash is probably gonna get the starts from here on, unless he's absolutely dreadful. And so I mean, bringing up Bibeau and sending him back down, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, there might be some tea leaves to read there, because I think that Aaron Dell has a hell of a ticket for what we've gotten from him this year, as far as money goes. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get too they're not dead yet, so I don't want to get too much into what are the Sharks going to do this summer. There's going to be plenty of time for that. But I just wonder if there's something in the tea leaves there with Bibeau spending so much time around the team, considering this is a guy that you're going to have to put through waivers next season if you want to keep him. How long have I been saying it? Since the All-Star break, that Bibeau will back up Martin Jones next year, or other starting goalie that I don't foresee. But I think it's going to be Jones and Bibeau next year. Yeah. All right. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into off season, because they're still alive, and we should probably at least treat them like they're still alive.
Hey, they're the only top seed that's still alive.
True. There is something I did want to talk about with Martin Jones.
Okay.
There's an article written by Shang Peng of Fear the Fin, and yes, I know Fear the Fin has had its controversies, but Shang is the real deal. Like, he has been busting out great content since he was writing for Jewels of the Crown. So if you can, read his articles. They're very good. He did an interview with, I'm blanking on the name right now, Greg Balich, who is a big goaltending guy. And they break down things that Jones is doing differently from previous years. And it's a really interesting read to kind of figure out, okay, so this is what the other teams are scouting. This is what they're doing. For example, on a cross-ice pass, Jones will push towards the shooter when you're supposed to push towards the back post to make it faster to get across. So there's a lot of little tricks that he kind of talks about in there. That's really interesting when you start watching Martin Jones play.
And yeah, you know, and that's interesting stuff too, because I know a lot of, I don't say Jones apologists. A lot of people have, you know, I think, look at coaching on this team has been openly questioned in this fan base all year. It's been a significantly hot topic. And it's interesting because I think Johan Hedberg's starting to take a lot of flack. And I don't know if it's fair because I don't watch the Sharks practice. So I don't know what they're doing. So I hate to really, you know, overly speculate on something that I just can't quantify. I can't tell you that Johan Hedberg's a great goalie coach, a bad goalie coach, a mediocre goalie coach. But I mean, how much do you guys think? You guys are closer to the team, obviously. Do you guys think that there's a part of Jones's problem maybe his coaching, or is this just Martin Jones not adjusting to teams possibly having the book on him?
I think it's the latter. I think that Hedberg and Nabokov kind of have the same tutelage from being under Warren Strelo.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much trust Warren Strelo. I mean, he was the Mitch Korn before Mitch Korn.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's just all between the ears for Martin Jones. And yeah, I'm sure some teams have a pretty good book on Martin Jones. At the same time, I still think the 18 guys in front of him need to be a lot better, because when the defense has sucked, the forwards have been great. And when game two, all those goals against, I actually thought the defense played really good, and that was without Mark-Edward Vlasic. But I thought the forwards in that game did no good job. They were terrible at back checking and terrible at supporting. So need to get all 18 guys on the same page. We saw it in the last game, but it's got to be every game here on.
It's got to be every game, right? Yeah, absolutely. Jerk, anything on that?
I mean, obviously the first inclination is to look at the coach and say, well, you know, they're the coach. They tell the players what to do, how to do it, all that stuff. But I mean, I don't know, because I mean, Martin Jones was a goalie before, you know, he met Johan Hedberg. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Martin Jones has had his whole life to perfect his craft and perfect the things about his game. And I mean, you know, a goalie coach can encourage him or give him advice on what the right thing to do is, but you know, Johan Hedberg is not in net for the Sharks as Martin Jones, and Martin Jones is going to do what he thinks is the right thing to do in a split reaction. Now, if it's a situation where he says, I'm bad at this, I need help me, then I think you can look at the coach. But I mean, if Jones and Hedberg, and again, I'm not saying this is the case, but if they're just, you know, going through the motions and it's like, yep, coach, I know what I'm doing, you know, you can't really blame Hedberg for that.
Yeah. Yeah, James asking in chat, just say the Sharks lose tomorrow, hope not, who is definitely gone next year. I don't want to get into that, because I just we're going to be positive. They have a game, they could win it, they're still in. Once they're out, don't worry, we'll have the scalpels ready, we'll put the body on the table, and we'll go over everything. We'll definitely do that.
We'll blame everyone.
We'll blame everyone. I'm sure we'll hack up Peter DeBoer, and for me, I think this problem is much higher than Peter DeBoer, but I feel like let's wait till the body's there, and then we can do it. Right now, we have an empty table. There's no body on it. Can't cut it open. Can't look at the heart. Can't look at anything else. So we're not going to do that yet. When it's appropriate, trust me, we will carve this team up like no one's carved it before.
Gonna carve it like a nice turkey.
Pretty much. I don't want to get, you know, but for now, let's hold those questions, and we'll have that podcast. When it's time to have that podcast, we're absolutely going to have that podcast.
And we hope to have that podcast after the draft podcast.
Correct.
We hope.
I hope so too.
But yeah, let's try and keep it somewhat positive here. I mean, I know I've been incredibly negative on this team, and I'm doing my best because there's a lot of different avenues I'd like to go through and just start yelling about people. But right now, they're in. They could lose tomorrow, and then we can carve up the body next week. But right now, we're gonna treat them like they're in until they're not in anymore. Yeah, Michael Haley's injury. Oof, that was gross. I'm pretty sure there's probably a break there. So day to day. Lots of days.
Days away from being days away.
From being on the LTIR. Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I mean, what else is there to really say here? I mean, what do the Sharks have to do to take this series back from?
Injure Mark Stone. Oh, besides that,
win game 6.
Win game 6. Let in less goals than the other team.
I mean, the Shark, like, if the Sharks, and I've said it on Twitter, I've said it on this podcast, I'm going to say it again, and mute me if you're sick of hearing it. But if you stop Stone, Patches, Stastny, the Golden Knights have nothing, because the Sharks have done a stellar job, and nobody would say that. No, you would never hear this from anybody because nobody's paying attention to it. But the quote-unquote Shark killer line, Marchessault, Smith, Carlson, what do they have? A goal in the series?
Yes.
Yeah, Sharks.
Destroying
Sharks have been able to silence that no problem. You take out that you stop that second line, and the Sharks should roll through this team no problem. And you look at it in game 5, Stastny, Patches, and Stone, they combined for 0 points, and the Sharks won. And I mean, all I'm saying, obviously it's easy to say, oh yeah, you shut down the best line and you're gonna win. But when you consider how good their other top 6 line has been, it's even more important. And especially, if you're like in the especially in the playoffs, especially against Marc-Andre Fleury, you're lucky to get more than 2 goals on him. Mm-hmm. And if you get 3 or more on Fleury, do not squander it by letting their Vegas' second line run all over you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is William Karlsson the next Jonathan Cheechoo? Unless he gets double hernia surgery, no.
And then traded Ottawa.
Yes.
Well, anything is possible.
But Jerk, what I'm gathering from your analysis is this is Ottawa's fault for being so bad that they had to trade away like their best player. Is that what we're blaming Ottawa, right?
Oh, Vegas was not yes, we are blaming Ottawa because Vegas was not even on my radar until they got Mark Stone. As soon as they got Mark Stone, I was like, crap, they got the best player in the league right now.
It's like when the Oilers got McDavid. It's like, really? You can go anywhere, and he goes to the Pacific.
That's exactly. As soon as Vegas got Mark Stone, I'm like, well, they got the best player this season. And like I said, without Mark Stone, they're not even on my radar. And I still stand by that. I mean, you shut down Mark Stone's line, and it's fine. The Sharks have better depth.
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, and give it up for Mark Stone. I mean, how happy is that guy in Vegas? You see it every time he scores. Like, It's basically a season's worth of frustration in Ottawa being let out goal by goal by goal, which sucks for us, but it's just like, man, the guy's on a mission.
And he's not going anywhere because they extended him, which makes me sad, Panda.
Yeah.
8 years after this year.
Oh, man.
That is a good hockey player.
Vince with a great question. If the Sharks force a game 7, does Vegas panic and throw Gusev in? I don't know, because Gerard Gallant, as much as I understand that anything I say positive about Vegas is going to just have daggers thrown at me from Sharks Twitter at this point. But Gerard Gallant's a really good coach, and I don't know if he's going to screw up his team. I don't think Gerard Gallant is not a panic coach. In my opinion, like there's never been anything from Gerard Gallant that's ever led me to believe that this is a guy that's going to panic at any point, even last year in the playoffs. But, do they throw him in? Possible, but yeah, I mean, it won't be out of panic.
Well, and so let me ask this for the group. And if there's something I don't know, then please tell me. But yes, Gusev's practicing with the team, but are we sure that he has the work visa so he can play?
It's Vegas, man. You can get papers like that.
Go to the chapel and get a work visa.
I don't think he'd be allowed to practice even in that case.
Well, You'd think, but Slava Voinov practiced with the LA Kings when he was suspended. So,
But that's not a
true.
work visa.
I'm trying to
thing.
think of who would get pulled out of the lineup in favor of
I don't even
Gusev.
know.
No sec.
I'm just trying to look over their roster. Carrier, that'd be the only guy
Yeah.
I think that would come out. Will
Yeah.
Carrier.
because I mean, their third line, with Eakin and Tuck, like that's been a very good third line. And not saying I want this to happen, but if you put Gusev on that third line with those two guys, watch out.
I don't like
Yeah.
it. Yeah, let's hope that I really like Gusev. I didn't think he would ever come over after the Shipachyov thing. So kudos to Vegas for getting him come over.
Mhm. Same.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. There's a question here. What is Ryan Reeves going to do tomorrow? Man, Ryan Reeves is Ryan Reeves. The Sharks need to just ignore that punk.
They did it in Game 5 and it worked.
Yeah, exactly. Like Ryan Reeves, for all the talk of how, oh, this is why, look at and wait a second. Wait, you said they did this in Game 5, but Michael Haley wasn't on the ice. How could this happen?
It's almost as if we never needed him.
Oh, amazing.
I
Like Ryan Reeves, is gonna do his thing regardless of who's on the ice with him. We could have an entire team of Milan Lucic, and Ryan Reeves is going to be Ryan Reeves. Then probably
That sounds like terrible hockey.
It would be a terrible, terrible hockey game. But I'm just like, I don't know. There's a couple of guys that I can, that are still could be played. Like you could have a team of Tom Wilsons, a team of, Lucic's, and look at and Reeves isn't going to just suddenly stop being Reeves because that's what's going to happen. Like he's going to be, the team needs to ignore his BS. They need to stop letting them get in their head. And when he does get a little physical, the guys need to stick up for themselves a little bit, which, thankfully, Kane went, and it's not a great trade-off for sure. But I mean, but when you have guys like Joe Thornton getting into jawing matches with Ryan Reeves, you've lost the battle. You have lost the battle at that point when you have Joe Thornton losing his mind, mouthing off to Ryan Reeves. You got to just ignore this, bud. And if you can ignore him like you did in Game 5, then you're going to be fine.
Did I tell you guys that I invited his brother to be on a podcast?
Jordan?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh man, fill in anyone who's watching about that.
So basically the TLDR version is that Ryan Reeves' brother, Jordan, plays in the CFL and was arrested for, smuggling cocaine. But anyways, he's been very mouthy on Twitter, we'll say, about the Golden Knights and how fantastic they are and how Joe Thornton's a punk and this, that, and the other. And so I replied, he called Joe Thornton a punk or something like that. And I replied, and I was like, hey, you should come on a podcast and chat with me. And he did not reply. I know, but
he decided to bash every other Sharks fan who tweeted at him because that's such a professional thing to do. But
are you sure we're not talking about Patrick O'Sullivan? We talking about the same person here?
Oh, we went there.
Damn.
For those who don't know, Drew has had that axe to grind for 4 years. So
I like my analytics, okay?
Hey, I just heard what Drew said because apparently our connection is live via satellite, so he's about 10 seconds late. But wow, you just went Patrick O'Sullivan there, huh?
Yeah, you most certainly did. All right, so I don't think there's too much more to break down into here. I kind of want to go over some of the other series really, really quickly because there's some other general news I want to get to. I want to talk about the Barracuda a little bit, and I want to get out of here before 3 hours. So
it's very optimistic of you.
I know it is very optimistic of you at this point. So let's move on. Winnipeg is now, not only do they not have good Wi-Fi, they don't have an airport. They no longer have a team in the playoffs either.
Winnipeg, that's awesome.
Jimmy Hayes, dude. Actually, you know what? Jimmy Hayes, real quickly. I did not like the trade for him. I've never been a big not even Jimmy Hayes. Kevin Hayes. Never been a big Kevin Hayes guy, but to me, he was the most, outside of Connor Hellebuck, he was probably the most noticeable Jet in this series. I felt like he's flying all over the place. So in that respect, I guess that was a good trade. It just, nobody else showed up. Nikolai Ehlers, what happened?
At least found himself for a game or two.
Nikolai Ehlers got hurt in Game 4.
But what happened before that?
He was still hurt. It was just his feelings that were hurt.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
This makes me sad because I really like the way the Jets are built for the most part, and it makes me sad that they're gone.
Josh Morrissey,
Mm-hmm.
Miss losing him. That again, I always say teams that if you lose one guy, you should still be able to overcome that. Otherwise, you're not winning the Stanley Cup, and the Jets proved that. But they lost one guy, Josh Morrissey, and lights out.
It's like it's like the Sharks in everyone cover your ears. It's like the Sharks in 2014. Just saying. After Vlasic got injured, all done.
Yeah.
Oh, I could give you a litany of Shark series where one guy gets hurt and the whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket.
Like Rafi Torres.
I could give you a list where 0 guys get hurt in a series and the series goes to hell in a handbasket. I just with Winnipeg or Winterpeg, as you said, I mean, I feel like a lot of people picked them to win the cup at the beginning of the year, and now they're out in the first round. And it's, I don't know. On one hand, it's like they are too good to be out this soon, but at the same time, I watched Game 5 tonight, and I watched, snippets of the other games, and they were severely outplayed in this series outside of games 3 and 4. And we've now seen 2 years in a row they give up hella assets for 2 guys, Paul Stastny and now Kevin Hayes, who are probably not going to come back, and they don't really have anything to show for it. And
what do you do when you're on a pick, though? Like those guys aren't coming via free agency, so you have to roll the dice.
And Winnipeg's lucky enough that their prospect pool is pretty deep that they could survive that. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Hockey Jerk. It's still a lot to give up. It's assets you could still have and don't.
Well, and not only that, but you consider what Winnipeg gave up for Kevin Hayes. Why would you not turn around and just give that up for Mark Stone? I mean, it was more or less the same package, but I digress. I just think with Winnipeg, they held their tongue for so long in terms of trading for rentals and trading in general, and now they've gotten bit twice. I mean, I thought Stastny was a good pickup for them, but Kevin Hayes did not work out the way they wanted to, I feel like. And you're right, Kevin. Those guys aren't coming in free agency, but if they can somehow make it work, I think a Matt Duchene would be a huge ad for them if they can make that happen.
I think when you look at a playoff series like this, or like in the playoffs like this in general, like there's obviously been a lot of upsets so far, but like the Blues have to be the real Cinderella here, right? Like with the way they were the last place team in the league this calendar year, and yet here they are. Like this is the real Cinderella story, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, and it even makes it better because of how Bington has played. Like you have this goalie who comes out of nowhere and is just tearing up the league. That just adds to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He prefers Winnington.
And
apparently Hellebuck prefers Hellesuck, so here we go.
Oh, wow.
It's okay, Drew. It's okay, Drew.
Pour one out for Connor Hellebuck.
I'm salty. So that's my boy.
Yeah, he needs to be better.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, but on that shelf above you, is that not a Connor Hellebuck trading card?
Oh, you mean this? Well, yes, it is a Connor Hellebuck trading card.
There you go.
Given to me by some jerk.
I'm getting poked at in the chat here, and this is something I do want to get to. Is like Paul Maurice can't survive this, can he?
That's tough. I mean, he's been a good coach, but we've seen the best coaches get fired, so it's really anybody's guess.
Really outside of because we've done this before. We've gone through Paul Maurice's coaching record. It's really not as stellar as it would be made out to be, other than last season. Like he's a coach with a couple of good runs and then just a lot of disappointments. Like I feel if we went through his coaching record again, we would see more disappointments than positive. Like I feel like he's a good coach to come in and kind of stabilize a franchise. Like if I'm Ottawa and they are, if I'm Ottawa and Paul Maurice becomes available, that's the guy I get, because he's a guy that can come in and stabilize a mess, which Winnipeg was when Paul Maurice came in.
And he did it in Calgary too.
Right. And he's done it a few times.
Yep.
Where he's come into an absolute mess and at least stabilized it. I think the only real, the only place where he really didn't, but it was such a mess was Toronto, where he couldn't really just stabilize that mess. But everywhere else he goes, he seems to stabilize that mess. He's the guy you hire before you hire the guy you want.
Yeah.
He's
I
the
always
Willie
felt Tom
Desjardins
Rennie was
of
this.
this team.
Oh, sorry, Drew.
You're okay. He's the Willie Desjardins of this situation. He's like your stopgap.
That's the way I've always seen Paul Maurice, and I just feel like this team's more talented than a first round exit, in my opinion. Even as hot as the Blues came into the playoffs, like the Jets should have put up a better fight here.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially their performance. I mean, I don't know how many people in the chat or how many of you guys watched game 5 tonight, but yeah, the Jets through the first 2 periods, the Jets had 6 shots on goal.
Yes.
One shot in the second.
One shot in the second period. Brutal.
It's not even bad luck. That's just
bad.
that's just expletive ridiculous.
Say your line, hockey jerk, about bad. We know what it is.
They're bad and they should feel bad.
Absolutely. I didn't want to do this to Drew, but we have to get here. Washington now up 3-2 over the Carolina Hurricanes. Drew, what's gone wrong?
You know what? I don't think. Here's the thing with the Carolina series, and Jerk's over there sipping his "I told you so" juice. Arizona's not in the playoffs.
Whatever I'm drinking can be your product for just a small monetary donation.
Sure.
Here's the thing with Carolina. I think it's a lot like the Winnipeg situation. I think it's a lot like the Winnipeg situation when they had their first run back and they got swept by Anaheim, and everyone was just kind of happy that they were in the postseason. And I think that holds true for Carolina too. I picked them to win this series because it's me, but it's definitely an upset if they win this series. The fact that it was tied 2-2, I'm ecstatic, and I think all of the Hurricanes fan base is just so happy that they got 2 solid wins on home ice and they got to experience that. It's less about going for the cup and more about getting the experience and giving the fans something to cheer for, because it's been 10 years.
But if they went for the cup and they make it to the cup final, I kind of want to see like Brian Burke and Don Cherry and like all these guys with just like TNT vests on trying to stop a storm surge with the Stanley Cup.
Oh, for sure.
I want to watch that.
Oh, definitely.
I think I just advocated for terrorism. FBI, you know where to find me. I apologize for, I guess, advocating for terrorism, but I kind of want to see like them try to stop this. Oh my God, this is the cup. Like, how do you, how dare you storm surge with the cup? I want to see a storm surge with the cup.
I do think that Carolina, what was it? Was it 2006 when Edmonton made it to the Cup Finals as the bottom seed, and then they lost, and they really couldn't recover after that because of the fact that they had a very late draft pick and they were kind of still rebuilding at that time. I think
Chris Pronger really hurt them, though. Let's be honest. Having Chris Pronger have to leave town for the reasons that he definitely did not help that situation.
Definitely, that's true. But I also think Carolina's more advanced in their rebuild, so to speak. I also picked them to win this series, Drew.
Thank you. I appreciate
that. he says like he's their brand rep. Thank you.
Number one to Hurricanes.
I was just going to say Charlotte was decidedly the number 1 team in the AHL this year. And so they've definitely got a good foundation going forward, no matter how far they go.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, like, you have great young talent. You have Aho, you have Teravainen, you have Svechnikov, who's like, I think awake now. And then you have, a solid decor. Like there is very few teams where you could stick your bottom pair out of top line and be kind of okay with it. But Carolina is one of those teams. DeHaan and TVR is a pretty decent, 5-6 pairing. Yeah. So they have a lot of good things going for him. Razik's playing well. He's making a resurgence. There's a lot of great pieces there. Now, do they still
one of
need
those
more
pieces
stuff?
go and try and punch Ovechkin in the face?
Are we switching the conversation to this fight? Because
I think you have to, right? I mean, because
sure.
This is probably when you look at some of the injuries that they're, like Ferland hasn't played, and now you're missing Svechnikov. Like, this was probably a turning point for, I hate turning points, but I mean, you could argue that this might be the turning point of the series.
Definitely, because Svechnikov, I mean, he's putting together a solid season. He had 20 goals, putting together a good postseason. The thing with the fight, though, I know the outcome was not something that you want. You never want to see somebody get knocked out cold during a fight. But it didn't look like Ovechkin was doing any, like, it's not like he like mugged Svechnikov. Like, that was a like consensual fight, if you will. And Ovechkin just destroyed him. But that's on Svechnikov for taking that fight and losing it.
Well, I was going to say, Drew, to your point, Svechnikov definitely asked for it. He ever since game 1 of this series, he has been slashing Ovechkin, trying to get into his kitchen, and to no avail until game 3. And I mean, like you said, you don't want to see a guy get injured, but Ovechkin popped him and he went down. I mean,
they're playing hockey. It wasn't like,
yeah,
it wasn't like, oh, this needs to be out of the game. I thought this is all solid playoff hockey, and it's just the outcome out of it.
It's not like he hopped the boards and beat some guy with a loafer. You know what I mean?
See, because that's where I'm at too. Like, I mean, obviously, like, I'm of two minds, and I'm still part Neanderthal because I've been watching hockey for so long. I mean, when I started watching hockey, I mean, people used to, like, you'd clear the benches on a regular basis, right? And for me, like, I it's hard to reconcile where I'm okay with somebody getting punched in the face repeatedly, but I'm not okay with someone getting elbowed in the head, right? Like, I do have trouble trying to reconcile this at some points because I'm like, well, yeah, like, probably shouldn't be punching each other in the head. We're worried about head damage so much. Probably shouldn't be punching each other in the head. But then it happens, and I'm like, yeah, let's kill each other.
That's why stage fights. That's where I can't.
Right. No, and I'm with you 100%. Stage fights, I have no time for. I have no time for stage fights. But in the moment, fights like that, I still don't have a problem. I understand that it's hypocritical of me to be like, oh, well, that guy should have been suspended for 100 games for that hit on the head. And then, and then they turn around and be like, wow, Ovechkin just killed him. That was awesome. So, I mean, I do have trouble with that sometimes, but at the same time, like, in the moment, I'm like, there's nobody turning off the TV. No one's going, oh, there's a fight. I got to go to the concession stand.
I mean,
I can't watch. Like, and I get that.
It goes back to, like,
real quick. Oh, sorry,
Kevin. Like, go, Kevin.
Real quick on Svechnikov, though. The worst part about him getting knocked out by Alex Ovechkin is the fact that I think that's his third concussion this season. He had one. He got elbowed. I can't even remember who, but he got elbowed in the game against the Sharks, the same game that I got hit in the head with a flying puck. Thanks, Mark Vlasic.
Oh.
And I think in that game, he had just come back from a concussion. So I believe that's 3 concussions for someone who's 19 years old or 18 even. And
scary.
Yeah.
It is scary.
Like, that's scary. When you look at it like that, like, that's scary stuff. And maybe, like, and here's the other thing too, though. Like, the big problem in our society right now, not to go completely off the rails here, but, like, there's such a lack of personal accountability. And, I'm sorry, Svechnikov picked that fight. Like, if you don't want to get punched in the face, don't pick a fight. This is a lesson I learned at a very young age with my nose broken, and, like, you don't pick a fight if you don't want to get punched in the face.
It's not like Ovechkin's out there, like, gooning around. Like,
right.
Ovechkin's Ovechkin. But I think, like, going back to your point of, you have a problem with the elbows, but not a problem with the fights. I think, again, it goes back to, like, when you get elbowed, you're a player who is defenseless. In a fight, you are consciously making the decision to put yourself in that situation. And that's why I have less of a problem with it, because both players are, for the most part, agreeing to the potential consequences.
I agree.
Exactly, Drew. That's 100% true, and I agree with you there. I think, and kind of on a different subject, I think, assuming Svechnikov is not seriously hurt and everything's all good, that's going to be one hell of a story to tell. I mean, how many people here can say that they punched their hero in the face?
when did Tomas Hertl punch Jaromir Jagr in the face?
It's like Laine being like, "Hey, I was on the ice for Ovechkin's 50th or something like that."
That'd be like if Line like popped Timu Solani, you know.
Okay, Boston, Toronto, because this is what this podcast has to do with the Toronto Maple Leafs, because everything has to have something to do with Toronto Maple Leafs.
Where's Vince? Here are the Leafs.
Here are the Leafs. The officials were told after Game 2 that their performance was unacceptable, and then those same people went to bed before the Sharks Vegas game started. Clearly, like the inconsistency in officiating, and I don't like to harp too overly on officiating because it gets into like tinfoil hat stuff I don't want to do. But I thought it was funny because it's like we always laugh about how like everyone goes to bed after the East Coast games are over and no one watches the West Coast games, and it's like, did that happen here? Did the situation just go to bed? They have like cots in there. It's like, all right, Toronto's done playing. It's time to go to bed. Like, I don't know. Apparently not, because Joe Thornton got suspended, so I guess someone saw something. This series has been great, in my opinion, and I'm not usually a big liking these teams at all.
What happened to the goaltending for both these teams?
Was it ever there to begin with? No. Like, I don't know what have you guys caught any of this? Because to me, like, I think whoever comes out of this series, I mean, obviously Washington's still in play, but whoever comes out of this series, you got to like their chance of getting to the Cup final, in my opinion. Whoever survives this.
See, I disagree with you there, just because I think Toronto and Boston have been. I think Toronto and Boston have been killing each other this whole series, and now, I'm not I want zero good things to ever happen to Boston, but I still want Boston to beat Toronto. And
but Patrick Marleau,
whatever.
How dare you?
I don't care. I still think, even though Toronto is on the verge of beating Boston, I still think Boston's going to pull it out, because Boston, frankly, is a better team than Toronto. Although Frederick Anderson would tell you otherwise. I don't know. I mean, I still look at Columbus and I look at the Islanders, who had, flawless playoffs so far, and I look at them, and I think it goes through one of them, at least for this point in time. Now, that could change, at the drop of a hat, but I at least think right now, especially the New York Islanders, I mean, there was zero instance where I thought Pittsburgh was going to win even a period. I thought the Islanders played a perfect hockey playoffs so far. So I don't know. I think whoever Boston or Toronto, whoever wins, I think they are going to lose in the second round, unfortunately. But that's the way it is.
I mean, it's going to be weird because, like, I still think, like, Boston, like, I look at Boston, I look at this team, like, I think Boston could give the Islanders a hell of a hard time.
It's that top line.
Yeah, I maybe the Leafs could too. I'm not as confident on the Leafs, but I'm never confident on the Leafs for anything. I have like about as much confidence in the Leafs as I do Martin Jones most of the time. So I'm not sure.
But Ian, John Tavares and Austin Matthews and all these guys, the Leafs.
True.
That's the one good thing about if Toronto was to win, was it'd be a step closer to an Islanders Maple Leafs playoff series this year. But to me, guys, I said it's Tampa. Like, the worst part of this playoff format for Boston is that Tampa Bay's in the way, and Tampa Bay's not in the way anymore.
No,
so I absolutely think it's Boston's conference to win.
Yeah, I like their chance. Like, I agree with, like, Dirk's right. I mean, Islanders have been really, really good. But I mean, this Bruins team's been there, done that. I feel like I like their blue line better than I think I like the Islanders. I don't know. It's gonna be tough. I mean, I'm not sure Boston's gonna make it past Toronto, and I think if Toronto, New York would be an interesting series because of all the nonsense. And oh my God, if you think Twitter's insufferable now with the Vegas Sharks series, wait till that one starts.
We don't need you.
Oh, amazing. I don't know. We definitely will. When the second round actually happens, I guess we can go there. Dallas, Nashville. Predators are now leading, or not? Stars are leading the Predators. 3-2. Another team, Nashville, that looks like they're just built to win a cup, and like probably should have won a cup by now. I feel like on the verge of also getting bounced in the first round, and I just don't understand hockey anymore.
Guys, does this series seem like the one that everyone has forgotten? Because I've paid zero attention to this series, and all I heard was Rocco Grimaldi did something, and I'm like, good for him. And other than that, I know nothing. I mean, I hear it from you guys that Dallas is winning, and I'm like, okay.
I honestly forgot Nashville was in the playoffs.
Honestly, I disagree with all of you guys. Outside of Calgary, Colorado, this has been the series I've been most excited to view, and I think that's partially because I'm enjoying the brand of hockey that Dallas is playing right now. I mean, they have their offensive punch is just so good. I didn't think we were going to talk about this series, which is why I went on my Rope Hintz tirade earlier. But
yeah, sorry,
no, you're good. But Rope Hintz has been just so much fun to watch, and Matt Zuccarello as well. I know Kevin and Ian will be praising me once we go off the air for correctly predicting where Matt Zuccarello was going to go.
I do like Matt Zuccarello, but get out of here.
But I just think he's been a perfect fit there, and he's only played, I think, 7 games with Dallas between regular season and playoffs, but he's got a point in almost all of them, and I just think he's been a big fit there, and he's been fun to watch because I feel like he kind of was stuck in a rut his last couple of years with the Rangers. And then that top line too, just Sagan, Ben, and Alexander Radulov is just so much fun to watch. They're just such a strong offensive punch, and even beyond that, the goaltending and the defense has been something that we've all laughed at for years, and they're, it's been very good. Ben Bishop obviously nominated for the Vezina Trophy.
Yep.
I think he probably has the inside track to win the Vezina Trophy. That's just my opinion, but their defense has been very stingy as well, and have played very well in front of him. And I like to, because Nashville has gotten ahead of Dallas numerous times in the series, and Dallas does not get rattled. They do not panic or anything. They're, cool as a cucumber. And, today they were down, Dallas was down early, and they were able to come back and win the game. And for you, Kevin, in case you didn't know, Rocco Grimaldi leads the Predators in goals this playoffs. He's got 3.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, I said, I've just enjoyed this series because Dallas for me has been so much fun to watch.
So is Jim Lights going to get on any conference calls when this series ends?
He's probably going to get the cut passed to him second, honestly.
Dang. I lit a fire under Jamie Benn and Tyler Sagan, and I knew I was going the whole time.
All right, so let's get to some odds and ends here. I think we talked about this a little bit, but since we have the full panel on, let's hit it again here. T-Mac is the new coach of the Los Angeles Kings. This bothers me because I feel like anytime a former coach comes back to visit, it always ends badly for the Sharks in the playoffs. Daryl Sutter, even Todd McClellan in the one playoff series we had. I mean, that was a pretty banged up Sharks team, but Todd McClellan came in, knocked us out of the playoffs. So I don't like the idea of Todd McClellan being in LA, but maybe because he's already been he's twice removed now, it'll be okay.
I mean, he already helped LA win a cup once, so it's not like he can do it.
Wow.
Can you do it from behind their bench though?
Oh.
Wow.
It's an interesting one to me because I thought for Todd McClellan, I thought the better fit would have been Buffalo.
Yeah.
I don't understand the fit in LA. I don't understand a lot of these fits, and we're gonna get to get some of the other stuff too. But I don't know. I don't understand the fit.
It's not about the fit though. Maybe it's about completely altering the culture altogether.
Possible. Yeah, I mean, look at Rob Blake. Obviously played under Todd McClellan, so he's gonna have that familiarity with them. Obviously he liked what he had when he was there, so it's going to be interesting to see how that really, how the coaching changed, because I think LA's got a ton of problems right now, and I think coaching might be maybe the least of them, to be completely honest.
Is Kovalchuk signed next year for the Kings as well?
Yeah, he got the Marlowe deal.
Yeah, he's got this coming season, and then he's got the season after it as well.
So I'm curious to know how Kovalchuk will respond under McClellan yelling at him.
I don't think Kovalchuk's going to be there next year, to be completely honest.
See, I disagree. I mean, well, you might be right, but I at least think I wouldn't be surprised if Kovalchuk and Todd McClellan, if they have a little powwow before the season and just see where things are at. Because I mean, I still think Kovalchuk is a very good player, and
he is.
And a lot of people are talking about his lack of stats. I mean, when you're on the fourth line and no power play time, what do you expect?
And injured for parts of the season.
That too.
Yeah. Is Blake gambling his job on top of McClellan? I don't think so. I think Rob Blake's pretty firmly set there. Look, he's got some. You have to give him time to undo things that have been done there. There's certain things that are just beyond his control. Like, he can't just go in there and fix everything right away because there's contracts that have to be waited out. Obviously the Kovalchuk thing didn't turn out as well as some people thought it would. That blue line's always been a problem, and but someone was going to give Drew Doughty the money they gave him, and then where would the Kings blue line be? Just completely gutted.
I heard, and of course, I'm not telling you it's true. I'm just telling you what I heard. I heard that the Kings are going to consider buying out Phaneuf.
I would.
Yeah, I would put stock in that.
So, time will tell.
Yeah. Okay. So we're 90 minutes. I'm going to kind of push things along here. Alain Vigneault, coach of the Flyers, another fit I don't really understand. Do you guys like this? Not like it? I don't like it. I don't think it's the right guy.
I think the Flyers are a team that could benefit from a John Tortorella type, a very defensive-minded coach, because there's just so much defensive talent on that team. Couturier is one of the best two-way centers in the league. You've got Gostisbehere, you've got Sanheim, you got Provorov, you have Carter Hart in goal. You have a young core to work with that can really make it could be like the Islanders this season, basically. I think they have a lot of good potential in their D-core that could benefit from a defensive-minded game plan, and I just don't know if AV is going to be someone to bring that.
I just worried about seeing Nolan Patrick on the fourth line.
That is a fear.
Jerk.
I don't understand it at all. I like what Drew said. I think Drew and I have had many conversations about the Philadelphia Flyers. I think they could stand. I mean, they if they figure out that bottom six and they figure out that the defense outside of Provorov, Sanheim, and Gostisbehere, I think they could be onto something there, especially with starter Hart. But I love AV as a coach, but AV is not a coach who comes in and cleans up a mess. AV is a coach.
He's the guy you hire after Paul Maurice.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's a great point.
It's a very good point, Ian. And I'm curious to see how it works out, because we've seen too, between Paul Holmgren and Bobby Clark and all those guys, even though they hire a general manager, they make it very obvious that the general manager reports to them. And, in that property as well, Chuck Fletcher will most likely say, look, you're the coach and you're running the team, but don't be surprised if I encourage you to do certain things. And I think that until Paul Holmgren and Bobby Clark leave the Flyers, I don't think they're going to be successful.
Yeah, I'm with you about Holmgren 100%.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind. Okay, so moving on. Did you have anything, Evan? Sorry, I'm trying to move us along.
No.
Okay. Yzerman's the new GM of the Red Wings, because we didn't see that one coming from 4,000 miles away the second he resigned his position in Dallas.
We had an episode about it.
Right, we did, right? I think I look at, obviously Steve Yzerman did a lot of good things in Tampa, but I was also kind of laughing at how it was everyone's like, oh, this is great, and I'm like, this is still really Steve Yzerman's team that got bounced in the first round in 4 games to Columbus. It's funny how that doesn't come up though.
I don't know. I still think it's good, because we've gone on a lot about how Detroit is kind of stuck and they're not doing anything to make themselves better for the long term. And they started doing that the last 2 years. And as much criticism as Ken Holland deserves, he also deserves some credit for that as well. But I think, you think about where Tampa Bay was 10 years ago. They were dumpster.
They're an also ran.
Yeah, they were to quote Pierre Dorian, they were a team, and that's about it. Yes. And Steve Yzerman built them from the ground up, and it makes so much sense. He's a Red Wings legend, right? And now he's going back to the Red Wings. And I'm a Sharks fan, but there are some non-Sharks teams that I watch what they're doing, in the GM's office, and it's just yeah, that's awesome to watch, and I'm legitimately excited to see how Yzerman crafts that Red Wings team, because they're finally starting to get some solid pieces and players in that organization, and I think it's just a matter of time. Honestly,
That Tatar trade was huge for him, getting all those picks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you look at, Ken Holland, I think he just can't manage a team in the salary cap era. Like, it really, if you watch, and also, it's hard to replace absolute legends in the game like Steve Yzerman and Nick Lidstrom. Like, you don't just draft a new Nick Lidstrom, I would argue top 3 defensemen of all time. You just don't draft that again. Like, you're not going to draft another. You can't just count on we'll just draft another Datsuk and another Yzerman. And obviously, losing some of the players they did through age, attrition, whatever. Obviously, look at the window is going to close on all teams eventually. But the way that Detroit just absolutely tripped around during the salary cap era has been, I like it because I don't like Detroit. So it's been amusing to watch. But at the same time, it's again, a storied franchise that, it's sad at the same time.
So what do you guys think about Deuce's Shoeless in the chat asked, does Ken Holland go to Seattle? And there's a lot of rumors about that. And
I wouldn't be shocked.
I still feel like Dave Tippett, I can't remember what, I said it on a show and I've already forgotten it. I can't remember what Dave Tippett said about GM versus coaching. I think Dave Tippett still could be the GM of the team, but at the same time, I feel like he said he wants to coach. I'm not sure.
Well, he wants to coach and he wants to, he's with the Vegas team, but I would not be shocked if he interviews for some coaching because he doesn't want to wait. I don't think he wants to wait for Seattle to be in to coach. If another opportunity comes up, I think he would take it. So it's gonna, it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, Ken Holland to Seattle is something that I've heard a ton of too, so it wouldn't surprise me. He's moving upstairs basically to a nice cushy, he's senior VP of hockey ops or something along those lines. But sometimes when you get promoted up, you just you keep a seat warm until and collect a paycheck out of loyalty. And obviously, the Ilitches are always going to be super kind to Ken Holland because let's be honest. Ken Holland wasn't so long ago. Ken Holland built them a multi-Stanley Cup. They were one of the most dominant teams of an era of hockey. They were the team to beat.
4 cups,
and that was and that was under Ken Holland. So I think he's always going to be taken care of there. And I think if he wants to bugger off to Seattle, they'll absolutely let him go.
I've just to kind of piggyback on that, I've heard nothing but good things about the Ilitch family, and so I feel like you're right in saying that, if he wants to stay in Detroit, they will have a seat for him, and if he wants to go do other things, I think they will encourage him to go do other things.
I'm gonna skip on the Vezina finals for now. I feel like when things are dead a little bit, we can kind of go through all the award winners at the same, the award nominations at the same time. I'm gonna skip the Vezina.
Sounds good.
Because I do want to get to the Barracuda because they're in the playoffs and they're playing games and they're tied. Kevin, tell me about Barracuda.
Barracuda tied 1-1 after 2 games here in the first round against San Diego. I do like how the Barracuda played both games. It's a shame that they lost game 1 in overtime. It was a wild one. If you didn't catch my Twitter, the Barracuda started off by scoring 3 goals in the first 6 minutes before the first media timeout, and then proceeded to give up 3 goals in the next 4 minutes. So we had a 3-3 hockey game 10 minutes into the first game of the first round. So it was, it's wild, unpredictable. I think Patrick Williams said it great when he said it was a lot of young kids who were just really excited to play in the playoffs and forgot all their fundamentals except for 10 minutes. But overall, I think the Barracuda have done very well. I think they have of course, winning game 2, coming back home for potentially 3 in a row. They have, they've done a great job. But at the same time, the Barracuda do need to watch how they close out these games, because game 1, the goals were getting kind of outplayed there for the first 15 minutes of period 3, and then the goals just turned it on, tied the game, won in overtime, and the Barracuda were just like, what was that? Josef Koronash bailed them out big time, and it took a controversial goal in OT to beat the Barracuda, which is why I don't think they could hang their heads. And then in game 2, the Barracuda just came out flying again, took the 3-1 lead, but they let the goals creep back in the last 7-8 minutes, and then a more controversy. Koronash gets knocked into the net, and somehow that's allowed to be a goal. And then, of course, good old AHL hockey, 2 brawls to end the game, to where the officials just decided to call the end of the game because it was a little too out of hand. And stay classy, San Diego, because the beers thrown at the players, not thrown on the ice, but thrown at the players, no good.
Yeah,
Good
there's been
job,
a lot of,
San Diego.
in general, just be better fans, people. Just be better fans. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna get into it.
We
So
like
the-
to drink our beer around San Jose.
right.
Oh.
And then make pyramids with the empty cups.
Get your shit together.
That's fun
Tinted.
time, though. That's fun time.
Okay. So they play again Monday.
Yes, Monday and Wednesday for sure, and then if it's a split, then they play Thursday.
All right. Well, there we go.
And if the Sharks go to Game 7, wow, that's a lot of hockey at SAP Center this week.
Uh-oh. Oh, no, not the ice. Oh, man, I can already hear it. The ice. Kevin Kurz, the ice.
Logan Couture, fix the damn ice.
Fix the damn ice. All right. I wanted to do just quickly. We got some guys still playing in junior hockey. Junior hockey is all in its conference finals now. Chmielewski has 13 goals, 19 points, 13 assists for 19 points in 10 games. Had a couple of goals today, I believe. The 67s have not lost a game yet in the playoffs.
10-0, yep.
10-0, which is pretty damn exciting. Jake McGrew with Spokane, I believe his team is also up. He has not the amazing point output that Chmielewski has, but I think 5 points in 10 games isn't anything to scoff at either. And Zachary Emond is riding the pine because he is not the starter in Rouyn-Noranda. So,
but he had a really, really good year in a backup.
He had a really good year. He had I think he came in and relieved one game in the playoffs and had a rough time, but it's garbage time at that point. So, other than that, though, we got to get out of here. We've been doing this way too long. We appreciate everyone who stuck around through it. I know that there was a lot of, playoff talk, obviously, when there's 8 series going on. There's a lot to talk about. So I appreciate you guys sticking through it. I know the Sharks content was a little on the light side this time around, but trust me, as things go on, the Sharks stuff will only increase, especially if they keep winning or losing. It doesn't matter. We'll definitely be talking about it. So thank you, everybody. We're getting out of here. Have a good night.